Story 1. Toy commercials used to be everywhere, but even on children's channels nowadays, there are fewer advertisements for toys. Story 2. That peppery, static sound when you turn a tube television off after it has been on for hours. When I was little, I would go up to the screen and smell the ozone coming off it. Story 3. The strange feeling I had on Sundays. You still had the entire day for yourself, but you knew school would start the next day, so you had to do homework and other tasks. Story 4. Trick-or-treating on Halloween night was free as a preteen, with the entire neighborhood participating. That was in the 1970s. Story 5. Appointment television. Meaning you knew exactly where you were going to be on Friday nights at 8 p.m. You and your family were watching Donnie and Marie. Or Thursday nights at 10 p.m. You were watching Hill Street Blues. Along with that, checking the television listings for any cool movies that were coming up. If you were lucky, Creature Double Feature had 2 Godzilla movies showing, or 2 Hammer horror films in a row. Pure bliss. Or there would be a Bruce Lee movie on at 2:15 a.m., and you would do everything you could to stay awake and watch it because it would not be shown again for 2 years. Story 6. Popcorn balls around Halloween time. Special promotion and countdown for new cartoons. Never forget the weeks leading up to Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Adventure Time. I haven't had cable for years, so I probably just missed them now. Speaking of those special cartoon crossovers, for example, Jimmy Neutron and Fairly Odd Parents. Also, can we get a rest in peace in the chat for silly bands? Story 7. There used to be a bird that I always heard before sleeping. It is gone now. Story 8. Willow whistles, my father used to carve them every spring. Story 9. Quicksand is always feared because of cartoons, but it turns out adults do not encounter traps like this on a daily basis. Story 10. That feeling of waking up next to your best friend after a sleepover. I would give anything to wake up next to her one more time. I lost her to cancer 2 years ago this month. God, I miss her. Sorry, sad. But it is what came to my mind. Story 11. Huge flights of ducks and geese, like hundreds of them in multiple V formations, sometimes many times a day. Fireflies in swarms so numerous and bright you would swear you could read by them. Thousands of little lights winking on and off across the meadow. Story 12. The tape loading sound of a game loading into a ZX Spectrum computer. Story 13. Decent-sized houses in good neighborhoods worth $200,000. Story 14. The smell of the paper unrolling on the kitchen table, flipping through the pages, finding the comics, lying on the living room floor, and reading the comics. Story 15. My friend's mom blowing a whistle and my mom calling my name to come home for dinner. Story 16. Baby wipes no longer come in small bins. I know because of the plastic waste, but those containers were reused frequently. Story 17. I have never seen or heard my father's voice. I was raised by my mother, and I missed my father very much. Story 18. News that does not involve economic collapse, stabbing, or immigration. Story 19. I don't know if it was a city-unique thing, but the grocery stores I used to go to with my mom had little juice bottles with miniature heads of cartoon characters for their tops. They were like collectibles, and I haven't seen them in years. Story 20. We called them cabbage butterflies. Small, a little bigger than a quarter, pale yellow or white. We used to see hundreds on our school fields. Story 21. The sound of a child's bike with playing cards clothespinned against the spokes created that ultra-cool whiffle 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 sound that increased in pitch the faster you went. Story 22. White dog poop. In the 1980s, some dog food manufacturers used to add bone meal to their products, causing the waste to be white. Story 23. I was randomly watching Adam Savage videos yesterday, and I saw he had a yellow robot in one of his display cases. This immense wave of nostalgia hit me, but I couldn't place it. I eventually realized it was Weibo from Flubber. I also used to have what I think was a McDonald's Weibo toy that I took everywhere with me for a long time, and I watched Flubber many times. I don't think I've seen the movie since I was a kid. Story 24. Saturday morning cartoons and my sugar-filled cereal of choice. Story 25. Good McDonald's or cereal toys used to be actual plastic toys. At some point, there were even compact disc games. Now, they are mostly cardboard. To be fair, I saw a plastic collection at McDonald's recently, so quality toys may have a comeback. There were also physical prizes in chip bags. Now, everything is online, and you only get a chance of winning something if you enter some information on a website. Story 26. A group of children riding bicycles. A group of children playing baseball, football, basketball, or street hockey just for fun, not a league game. Story 27. The sound of quail or bobwhites calling around sunset. Story 28. Saturday morning cartoons. Not just the cartoons, but the fact that it was something special that we all shared. That was all the television we needed or wanted for the rest of the day. I missed that too. Story 29. The religious television program, Lamp Unto My Feet, aired from 6:30 to 7 a.m. on Sunday mornings. The airtime slot immediately before television cartoons began at 7 a.m. I do not miss it, I am not fond of it, but I definitely have not seen it since my childhood. Lamp Unto My Feet was an American ecumenical religious program produced by Columbia Broadcasting System Television and broadcast from 1948 to 1979 on Sunday mornings. The title comes from Psalm 119. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, and a light unto my path. Story 30. There was a cartoon public service announcement in the 1980s about cocaine use where a man is getting ready for his day and snorts substances in each scene until finally he snorts his whole family. I have searched extensively but cannot find a clip, though I know it exists. It scared me a lot as a child. Does anyone remember this as well? I would love to see it again. Story 31. The chimes of my grandparents' old grandfather clock were progressive every 15 minutes. At the top of the hour, it played the entire chime sequence followed by the number of chimes corresponding to the hour. Story 32. Sears and Roebuck catalog. Look through it in the months leading up to Christmas wishing for something special. Story 33. Newspapers used to have a page of comics and crosswords, and an entire section of comics in color on the weekends. One local paper actually had them in a booklet like a comic book. They dropped most of the daily comics, and the weekend paper is not the large, unified publication it used to be. Story 34. Swishing sounds of taffeta slips all my older female relatives wore under their dresses. Fortunately, it was not the norm when I was older and needed to wear a slip. Story 35. My chest. Man with the large stomach. Story 36. Those old-school dial-up internet sounds bring back memories of a different era. Story 37. I have not seen a rotary phone in years. It seems strange to think that it was once the primary way people communicated. I remember how cool it felt to dial a number and hear that satisfying click-click sound. It was like a little ritual. Story 38. Grandparents. And yes, my dear father too. Pretty soon, though, we will all be together. Story 39. The Milky Way. I just saw it for the first time in 30 years this weekend. Story 40. There was an old ice cream shop in the town where I grew up, and they had a rainbow ice cream. It was not rainbow sherbet, but a wonderful creamy rainbow ice cream. I never saw it again after that place shut down when I was a child. This was back in the 1970s. Story 41. So there was a time when, for $1, you could get a packet of chewing gum with collectible cards. It was like a tiny envelope, and inside you could find the gum, a card with something, usually soccer players, Pokemon, or cars, a sticker or temporary tattoo, and fake money. It was a piece of paper that resembled various bills, usually dollars, euros, or Romanian RON. I used to collect those bills and cards and set up a tiny stand at school where I would sell my duplicates and small junk I could find wandering around for cards I did not have. Story 42. Sonic booms. There was an Air Force base near us, and sometimes the pilots would test new aircraft to see how fast they could go. Story 43. Not a sight or sound, but the smell of freshly printed copies handed out in class, like when the paper was still just a bit damp. Story 44. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, there was a kind of jello that formed 3 layers, a fluffy light top layer, a creamy middle layer, and a bottom layer that was regular jello. I absolutely loved it, and then it disappeared. Also, Purplesaurus Rex flavored Kool-Aid. I'm pretty sure it was just a combination of lemon and grape, but I have never been able to recreate it. Story 45. Cicadas. I used to see and hear them during summer when I lived in Las Vegas. I haven't seen them since I left. Story 46. Looking forward to a full 2-day weekend on Fridays, where I can do anything I want or just relax from the week. Missing what I once had, that feeling is magical. Story 47. Demo games in cereal boxes. Tall nerd ropes. Blockbuster. Hollywood Video. Dime tap purple bear suckers along with the original ingredients. Analog television. Snow channels with and without partial picture and sound. Movie props that are not computer-generated imagery. It seemed like there were more events when I was a kid. I have not been to the beach since I was a kid. The next one I still have, but it is nice to share. VHS player and tapes, especially homemade recordings. You would be surprised replaying them because many times a TV show is recorded around the news. My family has a tape my parent recorded that has a bunch of holiday kid shows on it like Charlie Brown, Garfield, Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph, and others, as well as Ghostbusters. There are commercials and news on it from that time as well. There was Desmond Tutu. What is strange is that in 2021 we watched the tape again, and after we turned it off, we turned on the news and they were talking about Tutu because he had just died. They showed the exact coverage we saw on the tape when it happened. The tape also included the Cold War, among other things. Very interesting. There are commercials like the Christmas commercials of the 7-Up mascot on a fire truck, McDonald's and the other mascots on ice skates, and looking to the night sky. Times were very different then. Homemade VHS tapes are like time capsules. You do not see things like that anymore. For a while, the Campbell's Soup Company brought back the Let It Snow commercial where the snowman melts to reveal it was actually a kid under the snow, which was nice to see again. Story 48. Hot Wheels Attack Pack. They were Hot Wheels with teeth. McDonald's released toys of them as well. Story 49. We had a clothes chute, as did everyone I knew. You put your dirty clothes through, and they would go to a box made of wooden slats in the basement so that no one had to carry them downstairs. Parents did not have to ask their kids as much. It was a fun game. Story 50. Telephone booths, where you can call somebody from. They used to be common when I grew up. I saw one in England, to be fair, but it was decorative. I have no idea why they were ever a thing, other than to travel through time. Story 51. The sound of your PlayStation 1 actually booting up the game disc. I haven't heard it in years, but that sound is burned into my mind. Story 52. Salted mayonnaise cakes. I haven't eaten one since my best friend's 11th birthday. Story 53. Just listen to me, Barry. Bang. I'll get back to you, Barry. Story 54. Someone pointed out to me that they never see spider plants anymore. They used to be everywhere and now they are gone. Story 55. Potato chips with flavor packets inside for you to add to taste. They used to be just salted, but then they started adding various flavors. Story 56. Like a very bright day. I don't know how, but I can never see that bright room on a Wednesday afternoon with the window illuminating it so brightly with orange light, almost like my eyes were color-graded fully orange for an hour or two. Story 57. Tropical tree snails. They were so beautiful, with multicolored swirls around the shells. I am from Miami, so maybe that is only a temperate zone thing. Story 58. One thing I have not seen since childhood is those ice cream trucks with the jingles. I remember running outside to catch them for a treat. You do not see them around much these days. Story 59. I had a particular Mexican dip-ready meal in 2001. I have never found it in the shops and do not know what it is called. One day I might find it and eat it again. Story 60. The sound of cheerful music being played by ice cream trucks. Story 61. Teletext. No one remembers how this was used for sports in the United Kingdom in the past. Story 62. Telephone switchboard. My uncle owned a motel in Canada. I used to play with the telephone switchboard when I was a kid. Story 63. Mixtapes were wonderful when you had a friend who could create an amazing collection of songs. Story 64. Good children and teenage TV shows, like Ben 10 or Danny Phantom. Not because I no longer watch TV myself, but because none of my nephews or young cousins watch any modern television shows for children or teenagers. They mostly watch YouTube. Story 65. White dog feces. It must have come from a dog food that is no longer available, but I remember seeing white dog feces in people's yards in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Story 66. 3D Doritos chips and jungle juices. Some may not know what those are, but my brother and I used to walk to the store for them. Story 67. Bobcats wandering through the yard. Alligators not bothering anyone because they still had ample habitat and food. Bobwhites all the time. No one rushing. No one distracted by nonsense such as devices all the time. Temperatures rarely above 80 degrees. Shoe skates and the sound of them on the sidewalk. And so much more. Story 68. The feeling of celebration on the last day of school. Knowing summer was here and I did not have to go to school until after Labor Day. Story 69. Bobwhites and whippoorwills. I do not know how to spell the second one. Story 70. All the fireflies are gone. There are far fewer dragonflies as well. The little green sticky frogs who used to cling to the back kitchen screen door at night during the summer are just gone. Story 71. My virginity? Although it has been a while, so it could be returning. Story 72. Trying to watch a premium cable channel through Wayne's World Vision. You got sound, and sometimes you could figure out the shape of something in your mind. The milk truck coming to the house. Story 73. Going to the shop to buy a new game, then opening the box to see what was inside and reading the manual on the way home. I have not had that feeling as an adult. Story 74. The answers here are interesting, ranging from the formation of the planet in the distant past to people wearing masks in recent times. Story 75. There used to be these things called Reese's balls. They were in the candy aisle, and my grandmother would pour them into a bowl for me. I think I was still small when they stopped making them, but I loved them. Story 76. Grasshoppers. I grew up in the countryside, and every summer I would hear grasshoppers sing everywhere. Now they are all gone. Story 77. Honestly, thunder. I am 27 years old now, and I literally have not heard a thunderstorm since high school. Plenty of rainstorms, but never thunder. Story 78. If you grew up in the 1980s, you can probably hear this in your mind. Story 79. 3 feet of snow south of Chicago. Matter of fact, cold Octobers. Story 80. Jets. Newer engines are super quiet, so I almost never hear airliners when they are overhead. Story 81. My grandpa and I would go to the store and get a bag of Fudgesicles, but they were not name brand. I distinctly remember that they came in a clear bag and were the wide kind of Fudgesicles. In the bag, they were lined up in rows that alternated. One half were brown fudge and the other half were yellow fudge. I have never seen a yellow Fudgesicle since then. No one seems to know what I am talking about either. This would have been in the early 1990s. Story 82. Smuff collectible glasses from McDonald's. We used them for years. Story 83. Oh, what I would give to be small and lie on the blue daycare floor mats again and fall asleep stretching while listening to Israel and New Breed's album, A Deeper Level. It was a different kind of peace. Story 84. Guess I will try again in an hour. Story 85. Kids taking their zip-up hoodie and making bat wings with their arms. I did it too, just lifting my arms with the hoodie stretched on them. Story 86. The penis butt inspector. I never saw him again after I turned 8 or 9. Story 87. Cameras that take Polaroid or 35mm film were very common. People would use them for everything, including making albums, getting film developed, and being excited for their photos to be developed. Yes, they are still around, but they were just like phones. Most everyone had them. Story 88. Turning on my Sega Genesis with Sonic the Hedgehog in it. Sega. Story 89. Gas stations used to give out items with a fill-up. Cutlery, food storage containers, screwdrivers, trading cards, collector coins, glasses, and all sorts of unusual things. Story 90. Tanning with baby oil and iodine. Gelatin molds. Chalkboards. Parents teaching their children how to be respectful in public. Story 91. Since I am a boomer, some of the sights and sounds for people in Bushwick include daily garbage pickup, the ragman, and the elderly ladies scrubbing the stops and sidewalks. In summer, there were kiddie rides, with Half Moon being my favorite. There was the guy selling watermelons, pronounced Watimilos, and the man who sold chunks of coconuts with or without a sweet drink, which made us kids giggle every time. Soda and seltzer were delivered regularly. Best of all, there were 3 different ice cream trucks, each with distinctive songs. Carvel, Mr. Softy, and if you were in Ridgewood, Bungalow Bar. Story 92. My parents want to take pictures of everything I am doing, but I do not do much anymore, even when we are out in public. Story 93. I guess the idea of experimenting and discovering works when trying something new. I'm a millennial, while my siblings are mostly Generation X. We used to be allowed to try something we got without even looking at the manuals that came with a new product and found it could do a lot more than what the manufacturers intended. The most obvious example was not a new toy. It was when we had the chance to go to a park or playground. There were many hazardous things that could leave a mark, but our parents mostly left us alone unless it required a trip to the emergency room. However, most of the time they just cleaned the wound and let us go back to play. Many even left us unsupervised. Today, I don't see that often. I mean, we had dangers around, but we were taught about stranger danger, and there was usually another adult nearby who would tell strangers to leave. However, when I go near a park or playground today, many parents are helicoptering their children and not allowing them to discover hidden yet safe activities. That is if I even see children playing outdoors. Story 94. TTI ta, TITI ta, TITI ta, TITI ta, TITI ta, TITI ta, TITI ta, Teawea. Your computer speaker right before you get called. Story 95. Watching The Lone Ranger and Lost in Space with my grandfather. Story 96. From the 1980s, play Smear the Queer, for King of the Hill, for Red Rover. Story 97. Tan M&Ms. I'm still feeling cheated by that "what should the new color be" campaign. They never told us they were removing one. Story 98. Lightning bugs. I have not seen them since we moved to Dallas. Story 99. I miss non-colorized black and white photographs. People colorize everything, turning photographic masterpieces into the kind of ordinary images commonly found on their phones. Story 100. People with full-fledged cable in their house. My buddy's aunt is the only person I know with a set-top cable box and a satellite dish. Everyone else I know uses internet streaming for cable channels, such as Hulu Plus Live TV and DirecTV Stream. Story 101. My grandmother and her dry sense of humor. Love you, Grandma. Story 102. The Helmsman. If you are older and live in Southern California, you will know. Story 103. The Pizza Hut commercial that played before the Land Before Time. Everybody have fun tonight. Story 104. Cabbage Patch Kids. I was talking to one of my childhood best friend's aunts about this just yesterday. Story 105. The one Saturday morning song that would play on American Broadcasting Company right before the Saturday morning cartoons started. Story 106. A very specific cartoon about a family of rabbits. No, it was not Max and Ruby. Those rabbits were yellow. It was a mom, dad, and a little boy. Sometimes there was a girl there too, but I think she was a half-sibling because she talked about having 2 homes. Story 107. Landline phone ringing followed by an answering machine playing its recording aloud. Then beep. Then someone either talking or hanging up. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.